Welcome to the Wealth Studying Podcast. This is episode 514. Today is March 26, 2026. I'm your host, John Pugliano. I'm also the founder and money manager at investablewealth.com. We'll just want to do a real quick midday update. It's another panic day in the market. I want to reiterate, I again personally see this at a minimum as a holding opportunity, right? I don't want to sell my positions that I think are good long-term opportunities just because there's some type of an headline algorithm sell-off caused by, something that comes out of the White House that's more than likely going to be totally different in the morning. I want to reiterate, before I get to that, one quick announcement. I know I've been talking about doing a live YouTube streaming Q&A session for, forever. Well, I have it scheduled April 1st. I love April Fool's Day, and we didn't do a April Fool's conference this year. So we're going to do it online. I'm going to take your live questions and answers on April 1st. It's scheduled over at YouTube. You can see that premiere out there. It'll occur when the markets close, 4 p.m., Wednesday, April 1st. If you can't be there live, go ahead and submit questions early on that YouTube link, and we'll see what we can get done that day. Hopefully there won't be a major technological learning curve for me to overcome that day. I will have my son Joe co-piloting with me, and so I'm sure everything will go smooth. Okay, back to the panic sell-off today. Here's the way I look at things, and I look at them from a very cynically optimistic Realpolitik point of view. And it's not that I have faith in the system, that I think that it's fair and some kind of Pollyannish view. It's just the opposite. I look at the system as simply being self-sustaining with built-in resilience because the big oligarchs, the people that many of you think have rigged the system, well, they have in fact. So, whether we're talking about Musk or Gates or Zuckerberg or Bezos or old school guys like Warren Buffett or politicians like the Trumps or the Pelosi's, the bottom line is the system perpetuates itself because that's where the oligarchs have their wealth. That's not changing overnight. And the market may react and go up and down, and you'll see 2-3% or more swings within the major indices, individual stocks. It's crazy. They can easily move 10% in any one day or more. But the key to having a diversified portfolio is having a diversified portfolio. It doesn't mean it won't fall apart in a flash crash. It just means that it's going to recover because this system recovers. It's designed that way. The only reason you notice it in your stock portfolio is because it's marked to market, right? If you try to sell your house today, this afternoon, you're going to get probably a much lower price for it than if you're willing to put it on the market and wait for 3 weeks or 3 months. Well, the stock market isn't priced that way. It's priced instantaneous. And so when either individuals panic or when high volume, high frequency traders have to suddenly shift their positions, it can cause major swings in the market. They defy all reality. You just ignore that. It's noise. It's static. Here's the bottom line. If you think that the world's falling apart and that there's no viable economic future, then most likely you're not listening to the podcast anyways. But if you think that, then you shouldn't be invested in the stock market. Little side note here, you shouldn't be invested in anything because gold today is down more than twice as much as the S&P 500. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, I think gold now is down well over 20% from its recent high. Silver down more than 40%. Bitcoin, not down as much as gold today, but certainly down more than 1% from where the S&P 500 is. So there's really nowhere to hide in these markets that trade on a daily or a 24-hour basis if you're worried about an overall economic collapse, right? Because nothing's going to protect you. Here's the problem about having a gloom and doom perspective in life. If it happens, there's nothing you can do to make your life any better. Right? If the grid goes down, if the electrical system goes down, if the grocery stores stop having food, eventually, no matter how prepared you are, it's likely going to have a major impact on your life, especially if you're even remotely connected to the modern world. So there's really nothing you can do, right? I talk about being prepared, but not being paranoid. The other side of it is, if you have a gloom and doom perspective, you're always going to miss opportunities. And I try and preach this about prosperity. Losses are limited, gains are infinite. And so if you're always focused on the negative and you're always focused on the gloom and doom, then you're always going to lose. And if you're ever right, if you're ever accurate that the world is totally coming to an end, that there's going to be a global nuclear war, or an asteroid or a meteor or something is going to hit the earth and wipe out civilization, well, you know what? You still lose because you're right, but there's no scenario where you can win there. So it's not worth worrying about because it's out of your area of influence and your sphere of control. Hey, bottom line, if you're a gloom and doomer, you've already stopped listening, a few minutes ago. But if you are a long-term investor, then focus on the three major trends, which I think are indisputable, that they're currently happening. They're historic in nature, they're multi-generational in impact, and all of them favor the United States stock market long-term. That's declining demographics, shifts in national security and geopolitical issues, and changes in technology. Those three things that you hear me talk about versions of them on and off for the last decade or so are going to be what matters in the next 3 to 5 years, regardless of what today's headlines are. And more than any other geographic area in the world, those three factors benefit the United States specifically, North America generally. If you have any questions about that, well, I'll answer those on April 1st on the YouTube channel.